All right, guys. So let's have a go at example one. I will do part of it. Then I want you to try and complete it. All right. So example one says, for each of the following, draw a relation diagram. Draw a relation diagram. And another name for a relation diagram is an arrow diagram. And state the type of relation, or in other words, state the type of mapping. I'm going to do B because it's a little harder than A. So I need to draw an arrow diagram for the relation x in the domain is mapped onto x squared minus x in the codomain. And I'm using domain elements from x is equal to -1 to x is equal to +3. So that is what this is telling me. I'm going to use values of x from x is equal to -1 to x is equal to +3. All right. So let's draw my arrow diagram. I'm going to put in my domain. And my codomain. Let's say this is x and this is y. And my values of x are -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. X in the domain is mapped to x squared minus x in the codomain. All right. So I don't know the values over here. But to get the first value, so this is telling me the relation at the bottom, x in the domain is mapped onto x squared minus x in the codomain, is telling me when I get a value of x in the domain, to get the value in the codomain, I must square that value of x and then minus the value of x. So this is going to be -1 square minus -1. -1 square is 1. And a negative times a negative is a +1. So the number here is 2. So -1 in the domain is mapped to 2 in the codomain. All right, so let's go for 0. Remember, this statement tells me what to do. It's telling me that x in the domain is mapped to x squared minus x in the codomain. So in other words, I must square the value of x and then minus the value of x. So this is 0 squared minus 0, which basically is still what? 0. So 0 here and 0 in the domain is mapped to 0 in the codomain. Here, this is 1 squared minus 1. 1 squared is 1 minus 1, and I still get 0. So 1 is also mapped to 0. So 1 is also mapped to 0. For 2, this is what? 2 squared minus 2. 2 squared is 4 minus 2. I get what? 2. So 2 is mapped to, also mapped to 2. Lastly, 3 squared minus 3. This is 9 minus 3. This is 6. So 3 is mapped to 6. So this is my relation diagram or my arrow diagram. And we're also asked to state what type of mapping it is. So essentially what I'm seeing is that -1 is mapped to 2 and 2 is also mapped to 2. So I have many going to what? 1. I have 0 mapped to 0 and 1 also mapped to 0. So it's a case of many going to 1. This is a many to 1 mapping. This is a many to 1 mapping. All right, with this in mind, guys, I want you to do A. I want you to complete the relation diagram in A. All right, so for example 1, example 1A, we ask for each of the following. We're to draw a relation diagram, arrow diagram, and state the type of relation. So the relation at A is x in the domain is mapped onto 3x plus 1 in the codomain, and we are using values of x, which are the domain values, from -1 to +3. So -1 is done for you already. So 0, you're going to multiply it by 3 and then add 1. So for this, you're going to get 1. So the number here is 1. So 0 is mapped to 1. Here, this is 3 times 1 plus 1. This is 4. So the number here is 4. Then 3 times 2 plus 1. The number here is 7. And then 3 times 3 plus 1. The number here is 10. All right. So we can see that every element in the codomain is the image of only one element in the domain. This is a 1 to 1 mapping. So this mapping is 1 to 1. Very quickly, guys, I want you to draw the relation diagram for C. All right, so for C, we're going to draw a relation diagram. For the relation, x in the domain is mapped to 2 to the power x in the codomain. So we have domain and we have codomain. We could say that these are x values and these are our y values. So we have -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. X in the domain is mapped to 2 to the power x in the codomain. So it's 2 raised to the power x. All right. So in other words, x now is the power of 2. So your x values, which are on the left, is the power of 2. So this is 2 to the -1. This is 2 to 0. Whatever is your x value, it is the power of 2. So this is 2 to the power 1. This is 2 squares. And this is 2 to the third power. Now 2 to the third power is 8. So 3 is mapped to 8. 2 to the 2 square is 4. So 2 is mapped to 4. 2 to the 1 is 2. So 1 is mapped to 2. Anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 2 to the 0 is 1. So 0 is mapped to 1. Now, 2 to the -1 is actually a half. 2 to the -1 is a half. So -1 is mapped to a half. All right. And to remind persons why, I remind you of the law of indices that says a to the minus n is equal to 1 over a to the power n. So that means 2 to the minus 1 is the same as saying 1 over 2 to the positive 1, which is just the same as saying a half. All right. So this is how you write this domain. You draw this relation diagram, and this is a 1 to 1 mapping. All right, let's turn the page. All right, example 2. Guys, let's see what you all can do for example 2. All right, so example 2 says, if a relation from x to y is defined by x in the domain is mapped to minus x squared plus x plus 2 in the codomain, we're to complete the relation diagram below. All right, so let's get the codomain value when the domain value is minus x. So this is minus x, and x is -2 square plus x, which is -2 plus 2. Now, minus 2 square means minus times -2 times -2. That's what it means. Now, whenever you multiply 3 negatives, the answer must come out negative. So this is -4. So it's -4. Now, a positive times a negative is a -2 plus 2. So this is -4. Well, for starters, -2 plus 2 is 0. So that just leaves what? -4. So the value here is -4. When x is -1, it's -1 square plus -1 plus 2. Now -1 square is -1. A positive times a negative is a -1 plus 2. All right, so minus 1 minus 1 is -2. So this is -2 plus 2, which is 0. So the value here is 0. 2 is mapped to -4, and -1 is mapped to 0. So this is -0 square plus 0 plus 2. So this is basically just 2. So 0 is mapped to 2. This is -1 square plus 1 plus 2. Now, -1 square, -1 square means minus times 1 times 1. So for -1 square, it's not, the negative is not squared. The only thing that is squared is the 1. So this is -1. So we have -1 plus 1 plus 2, which is 2. So 1 is mapped to 2. Let's see what 2 is mapped to. It's -2 square plus 2 plus 2. This is -4 plus 2 plus 2. This is 0. So 2 is mapped to 0. So what we have is, this is what our arrow diagram looks like. All right, and what type of mapping this is? This is many going to one. So this is a many to one mapping. This is a many to one mapping. All right, so you guys can have a look at it. Let me see if there's another one, but I'm not going to do 3. So fine.